6 months after the failed Sorvian invasion, Earth had changed. News of the alien attack and humanity's unexpected victory had united people in ways previously thought impossible. Old enemies became allies against a greater threat. Resources once spent on fighting each other were redirected to defense and space exploration. Kate Morgan stood at the window of her new office in the United Nations Space Command building in Geneva. At 35, she was now the youngest admiral in Earth's history, heading the newly formed diplomatic corps tasked with establishing contact with other civilizations. Admiral Morgan, her assistant called from the doorway. "They're ready for you in the council chamber." Kate nodded and straightened her uniform. Today's meeting would determine the future of Earth's relationship with the wider galaxy. The council chamber was filled with representatives from every nation, along with the key people who had faced the Sorvian threat. Dr. Alan Wright sat near the front, alongside Dr. Lisa Peterson. Captain John Bell, recently promoted to fleet commander, stood near the podium. Even Supreme Conqueror Zax Turrell was present, though heavily guarded and wearing restraints. President Harris opened the session. 6 months ago, we faced extinction. Today, we face a choice. The data recovered from the Sorvian flagship has revealed a universe far more populated and dangerous than we imagined. 15 worlds suffer under Sorvian rule. Dozens more species exist beyond our solar system. He gestured to Kate. "Admiral Morgan will present our options." Kate took the podium. "Thank you, Mr. President. Based on the information we've gathered, we have 3 choices. First, we can focus solely on defending Earth, building a stronger shield around our planet. Second, we can attempt to establish diplomatic relations with other free worlds, forming alliances for mutual protection. Or third," she paused, looking at the faces around her, "we can use what we've learned to help liberate the worlds conquered by the Sorvians." Murmurs filled the room. This third option was bold, perhaps reckless. "The Sorvian Empire is vast," Kate continued, "but it's also vulnerable now. Their leadership is in disarray after losing their supreme conqueror and their most powerful fleet. According to our prisoner, many conquered worlds maintain resistance movements. They just need help." Zax Turrell hissed from his seat. "You cannot defeat the entire alliance. What happened here was a single battle." John Bell stood. "A battle where we destroyed hundreds of your invincible ships in seconds. Imagine what would happen if we shared our technology with your former victims." Dr. Lisa Peterson raised her hand. "We've improved the Chrysalis technology. The new version is more targeted, affecting only specific types of technology. We could disable Sorvian weapons without harming civilian systems." President Harris called for order as excited conversation broke out. "This isn't a decision to be made lightly. We would be entering a galactic conflict." "We're already in it," Dr. Alan Wright said quietly. "The moment they attacked us, we became part of something larger. The question is whether we hide or stand up." Kate waited as the discussion continued. Finally, after hours of debate, a consensus emerged. Earth would not hide. Humanity would reach out to other free worlds, while also providing support to resistance movements on conquered planets. 1 month later, Kate stood on the bridge of Earth's newest ship, the EA's Liberator. Beside her, John Bell reviewed their mission plan. "We've established contact with resistance leaders on Proxima Centauri II," he reported. "They're eager to meet us." "And the Sorvian presence?" Kate asked. "Minimal, just an occupation force. Their main fleet is still responding to uprisings across the Empire. News of what happened at Earth has spread." Kate nodded and looked at the crew around her. Humans from every nation worked side by side with a common purpose. Dr. Susan Clark was there too, ready to establish first contact protocols with the Proxima Centauri resistance. "Set course," Kate ordered, "and prepare our message." As the ship accelerated toward its first mission, Kate thought about how quickly everything had changed. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone, thinking itself the only intelligent life in the universe. Now they were heading into the stars as defenders of freedom. The message they would carry was simple: the same one humanity had learned through its own history. Freedom was worth fighting for, and no empire, no matter how powerful, could stand against people determined to be free. Earth's warning had been ignored once. It would not be ignored again. The U.S. Defender floated silently at the edge of the solar system. His ship looked small against the vast blackness of space, but its sleek design hid capabilities no other nation on Earth had ever publicly revealed. Captain John Bell stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching his crew prepare for humanity's most important mission. "Status report," he said. His first officer, Sam Carter, looked up from his station. "All systems operational, Captain. We're at the coordinates. The alien fleet should be arriving within the hour." John nodded. The Defender had been a secret project for 15 years, built using technology reverse engineered from a crashed alien scout ship found in Arizona decades ago. Until now, only a handful of people knew it existed. Even most of the crew had been told they were on a classified testing mission until 3 days ago. "Dr. Clark, are you ready with the message?" John asked. Susan Clark nodded from her communication station. As the ship's xenolinguist, she had spent the past week crafting the perfect warning. "Yes, Captain. The translation should be clear to them based on the language patterns we've intercepted." "Let's hope they listen," John said quietly. The minutes ticked by. The crew remained silent, each person lost in their own thoughts. They were the first humans who would make direct contact with an alien race. They were also the first line of defense for their entire planet. The sensor officer suddenly straightened in his chair. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple objects entering the system. Speed consistent with faster-than-light travel." "Show me," John ordered. The main screen lit up with a tactical display. At first, there were just a few dots. Then dozens. Then hundreds. "My God," Sam whispered. "How many ships are there?" "Current count is 317, the sensor officer replied. "Various sizes. The largest appears to be approximately 5 kilometers in length." John's stomach tightened. The Defender was advanced, but it was just one ship against an armada. "Hail them," he ordered. Susan activated the communication array. "Channel open, Captain." John took a deep breath. "This is Captain John Bell of the Earth vessel U.S. Defender. You are entering a sovereign system. We request that you state your intentions." For a long moment, there was no response. Then the screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. It had gray-blue skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and no visible nose. When it spoke, its mouth moved in unnatural ways. "I am Supreme Conqueror Zax Terrell of the Xorvian Alliance. Your primitive species has been selected for incorporation into our empire. Prepare your world for our arrival." John kept his expression neutral despite the sick feeling in his gut. "Our world does not wish to be incorporated. This is a sovereign system. Turn back now. We have defensive capabilities you cannot comprehend. This is your only warning." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "We have conquered 17 worlds more advanced than yours. Your defenses are insignificant. Your resources and your people now belong to the Alliance." "We've detected your weapons powering up," Sam warned quietly. John didn't break eye contact with the alien. "We don't want conflict, but we will defend ourselves. The choice is yours." "There is no choice," Zax Terrell replied. "Only the inevitable. Your species will serve or be eliminated." The communication ended abruptly. John turned to his crew. Battle stations. Alarms sounded throughout the ship as everyone moved to their positions. The Defender's advanced shields activated, and weapon systems came online. 3 Xorvian ships breaking formation, the sensor officer called out. "They're moving to intercept us." "They're testing our capabilities," Susan said. John nodded. "Let's show them just enough to make them reconsider. Target engines only." The Defender's quantum phase cannons fired brilliant blue beams that sliced through the lead alien ship shields like they weren't there. The ship spun out of control, its engines dead. The other two are pulling back, Sam reported. Open the channel again, John ordered. Susan worked her console. Channel open. This is your final warning, John said firmly. We have demonstrated only a fraction of our capabilities. Turn your fleet around or face the consequences. The alien commander's face appeared again. This time, there was a hint of uncertainty in those 4 eyes. Your resistance is noted, Zax Terrell said, but it changes nothing. We will study this ship you have sent, then crush your world. As the communication ended, John turned to his crew. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. We need to warn them the Xorvians aren't backing down. 20 years earlier, Frank Peterson stared at the equations on his whiteboard. The basement lab was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. It was past midnight, but he couldn't sleep. The math was almost there, just out of reach. You're still here. Lisa Peterson stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. Her lab coat had the same government patch as his. A project so secret it didn't even have a name, just a number. I'm close to something, Frank said, taking a cup gratefully. Look at this. If we adjust the quantum field this way, we can create a bubble where the normal rules don't apply. Lisa looked at his equations. As a military physicist, she understood what her husband was describing. You're talking about changing how physics works in a specific area. Exactly, Frank said, excitement in his voice. We could make a space where energy and matter interact differently, just for a few seconds, but that would be enough. Enough for what? Lisa asked, though she already knew the answer. Frank hesitated. For defense. The ultimate defense. 3 days later, they presented their findings to General William Harris, the project director. The old general listened without interruption as Frank explained the concept of quantum displacement. So instead of building stronger weapons, General Harris said slowly, you want to change the rules so that the enemy's weapons don't work correctly. Better than that, Lisa explained. Their weapons would work against them. Their shields would channel energy inward instead of blocking it. Their power systems would feed back into themselves. And you can build this? The general asked. Frank nodded. We need 5 years and a bigger team, but yes. The general stood up and walked to the window. If this works, it would be the most powerful weapon ever created. It's not exactly a weapon, Frank said. It doesn't directly attack anything. It just changes the rules temporarily. Which makes it even more dangerous, the general replied. This stays completely classified. We'll call it Project Chrysalis. Over the next decade, Frank and Lisa led a team of the brightest minds on Earth. They worked in underground facilities, testing their theories on smaller and smaller scales. The first tests were promising. They could create a field the size of a tennis ball where metal became brittle and electronics failed. By year 5, they could affect an area the size of a football field. By year 8, they could cover several miles. But the power requirements were enormous, and the effect only lasted for seconds. We need to find a way to deploy this in space, Lisa told the project committee during year 10. We need platforms that can create overlapping fields. General Harris, now with more gray in his hair but the same sharp eyes, approved her plan. How many platforms? 12, Lisa answered. Positioned in orbit, they could create a protective shell around Earth. And the range? Another committee member asked. With the current design, about the distance to the moon, Frank said. But we're working on extending it. Construction of the platforms began in secret. They were disguised as weather satellites and communications arrays. Each contained a quantum displacement generator and enough power to create a bubble of altered physics several thousand miles across. General Harris watched the first platform launch from his office window. I hope we never have to use them, he said quietly. They're a last resort, Lisa assured him. If we ever do use them, it means everything else has failed. That's what worries me, the general replied. The president needs to understand what we've built here. This isn't just another weapon. This changes everything. A week later, In the Oval Office, General Harris and the Petersons explained Project Chrysalis to the president. They showed simulations of what would happen if the system was activated. The president watched in silence. When the presentation ended, he looked at each of them in turn. "You've created something that could save our world," he said finally, "or destroy it. This stays buried until there's no other choice. No one outside this room can know the full capabilities." As they left the White House, Frank took Lisa's hand. "Do you ever worry about what we've built?" Lisa looked up at the clear blue sky. "Every day. But I worry more about what might come from up there someday." Little did she know that 15 years later, her words would prove prophetic. The Xorvian fleet moved through the solar system with arrogant confidence. Their massive ships passed Jupiter without slowing, ignoring the warnings that Earth continued to broadcast. Captain Bell and the U.S. Defender had returned to Earth to report on their encounter, leaving monitoring drones to track the alien armada's progress. In the White House Situation Room, military leaders watched the aliens advance on a large screen. The room was tense. Every person there knew what was at stake. "They'll reach Mars in 3 days," Admiral Joe Green said, "and Earth 5 days after that." President Harris nodded. He had aged 10 years in the last 2 weeks. "What about our conventional defenses?" "We've positioned our best ships and weapons," Admiral Green replied. "But if the Defender barely made an impression." The door opened, and Kate Morgan walked in. Her uniform was wrinkled, and dark circles showed under her eyes. She hadn't slept in days. "Lieutenant Morgan," the president greeted her. "Any updates?" "Yes, sir. We've detected unusual movements from some of the smaller Xorvian ships. They're breaking formation." The main screen changed to show 5 alien vessels separating from the main fleet. "What are they doing?" someone asked. Kate's face was grim. "They're heading for our defense satellites." The room went quiet. Earth's conventional satellite defense network had been strengthened over the past weeks, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough against the alien technology. "They're testing us," Admiral Green said, "probing our defenses before the main attack." On the screen, one of the alien ships fired a beam of energy at a military satellite. The satellite exploded instantly. "Can we stop them?" the president asked. "We're trying," Kate said. "We've authorized our moon base to engage." The moon base had been Earth's secret military installation for a decade. Now its hidden railguns activated, firing massive projectiles at incredible speeds toward the alien ships. 2 of the 5 ships were hit. One spun out of control, while the other exploded in a bright flash. "Direct hits," Admiral Green exclaimed. But the celebration was short-lived. The remaining 3 Xorvian ships adjusted their shields and easily deflected the next round of projectiles. "They're adapting," Kate said quietly. Over the next 2 days, similar skirmishes played out across the solar system. Earth forces managed small victories, destroying scout ships and smaller vessels. But for each alien ship they damaged, the Xorvians seemed to grow stronger, learning from each encounter. Then came the moment that changed everything. Mars Colony had been established 5 years earlier. It was small, just 87 scientists and engineers living under domes on the red planet's surface. They had been warned about the approaching aliens, but evacuation ships wouldn't reach them in time. In the Situation Room, the president and his advisors watched as the main Xorvian fleet approached Mars. "They're slowing down," Kate reported. "Why would they stop at Mars?" The answer came moments later. The largest alien ship moved ahead of the others and positioned itself directly above the Mars colony. A message was broadcast simultaneously to Earth and the colony. "Primitive humans, Supreme Conqueror Zax Turrell's voice filled the room. Your resistance is futile but annoying. Observe the price of defiance." A bright beam shot from the alien flagship down to the Martian surface. The entire colony disappeared in a blinding flash. When the light faded, nothing remained but a smoking crater. 87 lives extinguished in seconds. The room was silent. Then the president slammed his fist on the table. That was a civilian research station. Another message came through. Your weapons are insignificant. Your defenses are weak. This demonstration was merciful compared to what awaits Earth. You have one planetary rotation to surrender. The president looked around the room at his advisors. Options. Commander Olivia Ross stood up. She had been silent until now. As the current head of Project Chrysalis, she rarely spoke in these meetings. Sir, she said quietly, it's time to consider activating Chrysalis. Several people in the room gasped. Most didn't know exactly what Chrysalis was, only that it was considered an absolute last resort. Are you certain? The president asked. No, Olivia admitted, but we're running out of alternatives. The president nodded slowly. Prepare a final warning message to the Xordians. Make it clear what will happen if they continue. And, he paused, begin Chrysalis activation protocols. The Xorvian fleet hung in space just beyond the moon, a dark cloud of ships against the stars. Earth looked small and blue from this distance, seemingly defenseless. In homes and shelters across the planet, people watched their screens and waited for news. Many prayed. Some said goodbye to loved ones. No one knew if tomorrow would come. In the hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Lisa Peterson stood before the assembled world leaders. At 65, her hair was gray and her hands slightly shaky, but her voice remained firm. Project Chrysalis is fully operational, she reported. All 12 platforms are ready. President Harris nodded grimly. And the effects? The quantum displacement field will extend from Earth's orbit to beyond the moon. Any advanced technology caught within it will experience a temporary but catastrophic shift in how energy and matter interact. And our own technology? The Chinese premier asked. We've hardened our essential systems, Lisa explained. Power grids, hospitals, and basic infrastructure should survive. Military systems will be temporarily disabled, but they'll recover. The Russian president leaned forward. What about civilian technology? Phones, cars, airplanes in flight? Lisa's face showed the weight of this question. There will be disruptions. Planes have been grounded. We've done everything possible to minimize casualties, but she didn't finish the sentence. Everyone understood the terrible calculation. Some losses on Earth versus extinction of the human race. How long will the effect last? Asked the Indian Prime Minister. 30 seconds, Lisa replied. That's all the power the platforms can generate before burning out. The room fell silent. 30 seconds to determine the fate of humanity. President Harris stood. Send the final warning. Captain John Bell sat on the bridge of the U.S. Defender, now positioned between Earth and the alien armada. His ship was Earth's last conventional defense. He knew it wouldn't be enough if the Xorgians attacked in force, but his mission wasn't to win a battle. It was to deliver Earth's final message. Channel open, Captain, Susan Clark reported. John took a deep breath. This is Captain John Bell of Earth. You have witnessed only a fraction of our defensive capabilities. This is your final warning. Retreat now or face consequences beyond your comprehension. The response came quickly. Supreme Conqueror Zax Turrell's face appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes narrowed with contempt. Your deception and resistance will be punished, he said coldly. We have analyzed your defenses. We have counted your ships. We will turn your oceans to steam and your cities to ash. You've miscalculated, John replied steadily. Please, for the sake of both our peoples, turn back. Zax Turrell made that strange laughing sound again. Your time is over. We approach now. The communication ended. On the tactical display, John watched as the entire Xorvian fleet began moving toward Earth, weapons powering up. They're coming, he reported to command. All ships, full attack formation. In the mountain bunker, President Harris received the message. He looked around the room at the other world leaders, then at Dr. Lisa Peterson. Is there any other way? He asked quietly. Lisa shook her head. I wish there was. The president closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. Activate Project Chrysalis. Lisa stepped to a console and entered her authorization code. A second operator did the same, then a third. Security measures built in decades ago to ensure no single person could trigger the system. Final authorization required, the computer announced. President Harris stepped forward and placed his palm on the scanner. Authorization confirmed. Daniel Harris, President of the United States. Chrysalis activation sequence initiated. The computer responded. Platforms charging. 30 seconds to field generation. On screens around the room, they could see the Xorvian fleet accelerating toward Earth, their massive weapons glowing with building energy. May God forgive us, someone whispered. Lisa watched the countdown timer, remembering that day 20 years ago, when her husband first wrote those equations on a whiteboard. Neither of them had imagined it would come to this. 10 seconds, the computer announced. The Xorvian ships entered firing range. The first energy beams shot toward Earth. 5 seconds. Lisa closed her eyes. Field activating now. A soft hum built around the Earth as the 12 Chrysalis platforms activated simultaneously. To human eyes, nothing seemed to happen at first. There was no visible beam, no explosion, no dramatic light show, just a slight shimmer in the air, like heat rising from hot pavement on a summer day. In space, it was different. A nearly invisible wave expanded outward from Earth at incredible speed. It passed through the U.S. Defender, causing the ship's lights to flicker briefly. Captain John Bell felt a strange tingling sensation, like static electricity running across his skin. Chrysalis is active, his communications officer reported. We're shielded enough to observe, sir. Show me, John ordered. The main screen switched to an external view. The wave of quantum displacement continued outward, reaching the Xorvian fleet in seconds. What happened next defied description. The laws of physics themselves changed within the field. The alien ships, built with technology that relied on those laws, suddenly found themselves in a universe where their most basic principles no longer applied. The Xorvian energy shields, designed to repel attacks, instantly became conductors instead of barriers. They pulled in energy rather than deflecting it. Their weapon systems, powering up to fire on Earth, fed back into their own power cores in a catastrophic loop. Hull materials, nearly indestructible under normal conditions, became brittle and porous. Internal systems that controlled life support and gravity went haywire, creating pockets of vacuum and crushing pressure inside the ships. In the bunker beneath the mountains, the assembled leaders watched in stunned silence as the massive alien fleet began to disintegrate. Ships imploded or tore themselves apart from within. Energy cores overloaded and exploded. Smaller vessels crumbled like dry leaves. My God, President Harris whispered. Lisa Peterson stared at the screens, her face pale. This was exactly what their simulations had predicted, but seeing it happen to actual ships with living beings aboard was different. This was the weapon she had helped create, now unleashed in its full terrible potential. 20 seconds remaining, the computer announced calmly. On the bridge of the U.S. Defender, the crew watched in awe and horror. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before were now breaking apart or crushing themselves. Energy discharges flashed between vessels as their power systems went critical. It's working on every ship, Susan Clark said, her voice barely audible. The entire fleet. John Bell nodded silently. The Defender was far enough from the main fleet to be safe, but close enough to witness everything. He knew he was watching history unfold, a moment that would forever change humanity's place in the universe. Wait, his sensor officer called out. The flagship is still partially intact. John looked at the screen. The enormous Xorvian command ship was severely damaged, but its core section remained whole. Somehow, it had shielding that partially resisted the quantum displacement effect. 10 seconds remaining. The computer counted down in the mountain bunker. Throughout Earth, the effects of the field were felt. Electrical systems flickered. Communications dropped briefly. Cars stalled. But as Lisa had promised, the hardened infrastructure held. Hospitals kept running on backup systems designed to withstand the effect. Some planes that couldn't be grounded in time experienced failures, but most had emergency protocols that saved them. The human cost was there, but far less than feared. 5 seconds, the countdown continued. In space, the destruction was nearly complete. Where there had been hundreds of alien warships, there was now a spreading cloud of debris. Only the damaged flagship remained, drifting and powerless. Field collapse in 3, 2, 1. The quantum displacement effect ended as suddenly as it had begun. The laws of physics snapped back to normal. The shimmering wave dissipated into nothing. In the bunker, Lisa stared at the screens showing the aftermath. "It worked," she said quietly. "It actually worked." President Harris looked at her. "Is it over?" Before she could answer, a message came through from Captain Bell on the U.S. Defender. "The main fleet has been neutralized," he reported. "But the flagship survived, at least partially. Request permission to approach and board. We need to know if they'll try again." President Harris looked around at the other world leaders. Each nodded in turn. "Permission granted, Captain," he said. "But be careful. This may not be over yet." The U.S. Defender approached the damaged Xorvian flagship carefully. The massive alien vessel drifted in space, surrounded by debris from its destroyed fleet. Occasional energy discharges sparked across its hull, and entire sections had been torn away, exposing the interior to vacuum. Captain John Bell led the boarding party himself. 6 crew members in armored spacesuits followed him through the airlock, weapons ready. Susan Clark came as well. If any aliens survived, they would need her translation skills. "Stay alert," John warned as they entered the alien ship. "We don't know what survived or what they might try." The interior of the flagship was chaos. Bodies of Xorvian crew members floated in corridors where gravity had failed. Strange equipment, now damaged beyond recognition, lined the walls. Emergency lights cast an eerie blue glow over everything. "This way," Susan said, checking her scanner. "I'm detecting life signs in what appears to be the command center." They moved through the ship cautiously. Twice they encountered surviving Xorvians. The first group attacked immediately and were stunned by the humans' weapons. The second group surrendered without resistance, clearly shocked by what had happened to their invincible fleet. After 20 minutes of careful progress, they reached the command center. The massive doors were partially open, jammed by damage from the quantum displacement field. John peered through the gap. Inside, perhaps a dozen Xorvians were frantically working at control panels. In the center, on an elevated platform, sat Supreme Conqueror Zaxteril. Even injured, with one of his 4 eyes swollen shut, he projected authority and rage. "Prepare for direct entry," John whispered to his team. "Stun weapons only. We need prisoners, not casualties." The team slipped through the damaged doors. Before the aliens could react, they fired their stun weapons. In seconds, most of the Xorvian crew collapsed. Only Zaxteril remained standing, protected by a personal shield that had somehow survived. "Your primitive attack failed," the alien leader hissed, drawing a weapon of his own. John raised his hand. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your conquest is over. Surrender now." Zaxteril fired his weapon, but it sputtered and died in his hand, damaged by the lingering effects of the quantum field. With a cry of rage, he threw it aside. "You cannot defeat the Alliance," he declared. "More ships will come, thousands more." Susan stepped forward. "No more ships will come when they learn what happened here. When they learn that Earth is not defenseless." The alien leader stared at her with his remaining functional eyes. For the first time, there was uncertainty in his gaze. While 2 crew members secured Zaxteril, Susan approached the main computer terminal. It was still partially functional. She began accessing files, her fingers moving quickly over the alien interface she had studied from intercepted transmissions. "Captain," she called after several minutes. You need to see this." John joined her at the terminal. On the screen were images of other worlds. 15 planets in total, each labeled with alien text. "These are their previous conquests," Susan explained, her voice tight with emotion. 15 civilizations before us. Some surrendered. Some fought. All of them fell. "All of them?" John asked quietly. Susan nodded. According to these records, Earth was to be number 16. They expected the same outcome, an easy victory. John turned to look at the captured Supreme Conqueror. "You've been doing this for a long time, haven't you? Finding worlds, conquering them, taking their resources. It is the right of the strong to rule the weak," Zax Turrell replied without remorse. "We warned you," John said simply. "We beg you to leave us in peace." "Warnings from primitives mean nothing," the alien leader spat. John shook his head. "That was your mistake. We're not primitives. We just appear that way by choice." Confusion showed on Zax Turrell's face. Susan had continued her search through the files. "Captain, there's more. These conquered worlds, many still have surviving populations under Sorvian control. Billions of beings living as slaves." A heavy silence fell over the command center. The implications were clear. Earth had defended itself, but these other worlds remained under the thumb of the Sorvian alliance. "Download everything," John ordered. "Every bit of data about their empire, their fleet movements, their technologies. Earth's leaders need to see this." As his crew worked, John walked to one of the massive viewports. Earth was visible in the distance, a blue marble against the blackness of space. His home, safe for now. But the universe had just become much larger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. "Sir," one of his officers called, "we've secured the prisoner and gathered all critical data, ready to return to the Defender." 6 months after the failed Sorvian invasion, Earth had changed. News of the alien attack and humanity's unexpected victory had united people in ways previously thought impossible. Old enemies became allies against a greater threat. Resources once spent on fighting each other were redirected to defense and space exploration. Kate Morgan stood at the window of her new office in the United Nations Space Command building in Geneva. At 35, she was now the youngest admiral in Earth's history, heading the newly formed diplomatic corps tasked with establishing contact with other civilizations. "Admiral Morgan," her assistant called from the doorway. "They're ready for you in the council chamber." Kate nodded and straightened her uniform. Today's meeting would determine the future of Earth's relationship with the wider galaxy. The council chamber was filled with representatives from every nation, along with the key people who had faced the Sorvian threat. Dr. Alan Wright sat near the front, alongside Dr. Lisa Peterson. Captain John Bell, recently promoted to fleet commander, stood near the podium. Even Supreme Conqueror Zax Turrell was present, though heavily guarded and wearing restraints. President Harris opened the session. 6 months ago, we faced extinction. Today, we face a choice. The data recovered from the Sorvian flagship has revealed a universe far more populated and dangerous than we imagined. 15 worlds suffer under Sorvian rule. Dozens more species exist beyond our solar system. He gestured to Kate. "Admiral Morgan will present our options." Kate took the podium. "Thank you, Mr. President. Based on the information we've gathered, we have 3 choices. First, we can focus solely on defending Earth, building a stronger shield around our planet. Second, we can attempt to establish diplomatic relations with other free worlds, forming alliances for mutual protection. Or third," she paused, looking at the faces around her, "we can use what we've learned to help liberate the worlds conquered by the Sorvians." Murmurs filled the room. This third option was bold, perhaps reckless. "The Sorvian Empire is vast," Kate continued, "but it's also vulnerable now. Their leadership is in disarray after losing their supreme conqueror and their most powerful fleet. According to our prisoner, many conquered worlds maintain resistance movements. They just need help." Zax Turrell hissed from his seat. "You cannot defeat the entire alliance. What happened here was a single battle. John Bell stood. A battle where we destroyed hundreds of your invincible ships in seconds. Imagine what would happen if we shared our technology with your former victims. Dr. Lisa Peterson raised her hand. We've improved the Chrysalis technology. The new version is more targeted, affecting only specific types of technology. We could disable Sorvian weapons without harming civilian systems. President Harris called for order as excited conversation broke out. This isn't a decision to be made lightly. We would be entering a galactic conflict. We're already in it, Dr. Alan Wright said quietly. The moment they attacked us, we became part of something larger. The question is whether we hide or stand up. Kate waited as the discussion continued. Finally, after hours of debate, a consensus emerged. Earth would not hide. Humanity would reach out to other free worlds, while also providing support to resistance movements on conquered planets. 1 month later, Kate stood on the bridge of Earth's newest ship, the EA's Liberator. Beside her, John Bell reviewed their mission plan. We've established contact with resistance leaders on Proxima Centauri II, he reported. They're eager to meet us. And the Xorvian presence? Kate asked. Minimal, just an occupation force. Their main fleet is still responding to uprisings across the Empire. News of what happened at Earth has spread. Kate nodded and looked at the crew around her. Humans from every nation worked side by side with a common purpose. Dr. Susan Clark was there too, ready to establish first contact protocols with the Proxima Centauri resistance. Set course, Kate ordered, and prepare our message. As the ship accelerated toward its first mission, Kate thought about how quickly everything had changed. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone, thinking itself the only intelligent life in the universe. Now they were heading into the stars as defenders of freedom. The message they would carry was simple, the same one humanity had learned through its own history. Freedom was worth fighting for, and no empire, no matter how powerful, could stand against people determined to be free. Earth's warning had been ignored once. It would not be ignored again.